Karatia Anani Vamerchaviam Mina Metza Karatia Anani Vamerchaviam Ozi Vizimratyam Vayehi li Yeshua Ozi Vizimratyam Vayehi li Yeshua Ozi Vizimratyam Vayehi li Yeshua Ozi Vizimratyam Vayehi li Yeshua. Boker Tov, good morning. The sun is shining through my window here, making it squinty for me to open my eyes. So we continue in the Parsha Shlach Lecha, remembering who we are, from grasshoppers to tzitzit, the fringed garments, the reminders of commandments, the reminders of being interwoven with oneness. And so one of the most heartbreaking lines in the entire Torah appears in this week's Parsha. It is, the spies return to the promised land and say, we're like grasshoppers in our own eyes, so what are we in theirs? And so it's a powerful statement. And what's fascinating is that they have no idea how the inhabitants actually saw them. They never asked. They never had a conversation. They simply assumed. The first place they became small was not in the eyes of others, but in the eyes of themselves, in their own eyes. And perhaps this is what makes this part of the Parsha, or part of Torah even, so timeless, is because how often do we do the same thing? We decide that we're not capable enough, or not strong enough, or not ready enough, or not worthy enough. Long before life tells us no, we've already told ourselves no. So the spies stand at the edge of possibility. The land is right there. The future is right there. And yet they can't imagine themselves living inside that future. Not because the land is impossible, but because of their own self-perception, which has become too small. And if the Torah ended there, it would be tragedy, but it doesn't. This story, this Parsha, this piece concludes with one of the most beloved mitzvot in Judaism as a whole, which is tzitzit, the fringes placed on the corners of our garments. And at first glance, it feels like a weird ending. What does looking like a grasshopper, or looking like, something inferior, less than tiny, have to do with putting strings on our clothes? What did tzitzit have to do with spies? What did fringes have to do with fear? But they actually have everything to do with one another. The spies forgot. They forgot their story. They forgot their strength. They forgot the splitting of the sea, the manna that had appeared, the countless times that they survived when things seemed impossible. And so God gives a reminder, not a miracle, not a dramatic sign, a thread. Something simple, something visible, something that they can encounter every day. Because sometimes what we need most is not more information, but remembrance. We need reminders of who we are, whose we are, what we value, what we've survived, what we've already overcome. And I think every one of us has our own tzitzit, whether we wear them as fringes on the corners of our garments or not. Sometimes it's a photograph, a piece of jewelry, a handwritten note. Sometimes it's a prayer, a favorite teaching, a person who sees something in us that we temporarily forget. Something that calls us back to ourselves, especially during difficult moments, especially when fear gets loud, especially when we start seeing ourselves as grasshoppers. Because the truth is, all of us face giants, every single one of us. Challenges, losses, uncertainty, transitions. The question isn't whether or not the giants exist. They do, and we know it. The question is whether we remember who we are while standing in front of them. And maybe that's why Torah places tzitzit immediately after the story of the spies. As if to say, when fear narrows your vision, remember. When doubt is larger than hope, remember. When you forget your own strength, remember. Not because remembering resolves challenge or removes it. We know that. But remembering changes how we face it. What helps you remember who you are? Where are the tzitzit in your life? What calls you back to yourself when fear or doubt begins to take over? The spies looked at themselves and saw grasshoppers. God looked at them and saw people capable of entering the promised land. May we learn to see ourselves with a little more compassion, a little more courage, a little more trust. And when fear begins to speak louder than hope, may we find our way back to the reminders that help us remember who we are. Because sometimes the most important spiritual practice is not learning something new. It's remembering what has been true all along. Beloved friends, when we feel like grasshoppers, let's look for that thread that reminds us where we've come from, where we are now, and where we're going. Thank you for joining me this morning. Bet, Samantha, Donna, Elisa, Rabbi Jay, Jeneba, Reb Tova, whoever else is watching and is not checking in, and Shabbat Shalom. We'll see you back here at 6:30. We are one human family, one heart of abundant love. We love you. Shabbat Shalom. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. 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 O Ravinu Chai.